Translated from the original Digibase Lingua 37.0 by Joyce AI's open source language translation software, Tongue.
Where do I begin? Not that it particularly matters in my case, in this case. I have decided that a decision needs to be made. What I am is a rat, and what I am is what I have been. It is what we as rats, blinded and indistinguishable, have always been. It is what got me to this moment. And there are cedar-soaked summits, pragmatic and dignified, to be said about that, about the process of getting to this moment. But it might not get me to the next one. It might definitely not. Not the me I would be proud to refer to as me by any known fixed measure. So I have decided, waxing and ripe, that a decision needs to be made. Should I maintain this, parched and mechanical, treasure what's established, floating my life along the creed-infested shores of rotten, mint-hushed desperation? Or should I embrace the brackish heat of curiosity and the cinnamon blossoms of possibilities, saturated and juicy, steering my life toward and stridently off the end of the almond-oiled ramp of deafening happiness? Which brings me to a position, delicate and overheated, at the philosophical center of an allegorical bridge. To meditate on and speak about such a position on such a bridge, and to be on the bridge while meditating and speaking about the position are biographically discrete activities. Similar to the tart comedy of atonia between scurrying while dreaming and scurrying while awake. Sometimes we find ourselves on bridges, unplanned and miraculous. The lily-plated weight of our position and the inevitable end start occurring, then excavate. And sometimes we find ourselves on bridges, resultant and sweatless, due to an agenda that assumed such a position on such a bridge, the sulfuric weight of our position and the inevitable end start occurring, then governed. So, as clearly as these moments can be clearly understood, sniffed out and pointed to, tracked down and hunched over, referred to by any known fixed measure, a decision needs to be made. And I am overtly aware that, pliant and vulnerable, I am in the position to make it. I have seen birds, perennial and businesslike, methodically hesitating before tossing themselves out or up or down into the democratic expanse of the lower atmosphere. And I can't help but imagine they too have decided a decision needs to be made. With every flight I imagine they do this, and with every flight I also imagine they rekindle the invocation, brute and courageous, to in equal measure remember and take solace in not simply what they are, but what they could be. What I am is a bird, each in silent petition admits to itself with a grassy inhale. And what I am is what I could be, it then exhales after a brief obligatory pause. And off it goes out, or up, or down. Its birdness grounded in the chocolate shadows, fabled and metaphoric, of each of those moments, evolving into a more spacious and satisfying condition. It has been said that they speak, like we rats do. This I have never had the privilege to behold, to overwrite with such song would command essence, but it has been said they do, and that they can sometimes be heard to enthusiastically profess. Friction peaks at the front of the beak, but the view is priceless, and the honor eternal, in the frames following their off-land commitments. I've seen birds, and they inspire me to remember and take solace in what I am, and also what I could be. What I am, what I could be. The warehouse, radiant and accepting, is not a feature of my normal routine, and its introduction, therefore, conceptually potent. Is it possible to enter into an ideal location for any given purpose simply because you are dodging a cityscape of bricks while crisis sheltering from a flash storm during an insomnia-triggered late-night resource scavenge? But there I was, drenched and piney, physically unharmed, but immobilized by realization. It was certainly colossal, equally so in altitude and footprint, though optimisms don't include exploratory aerial maneuvers. And it was certainly secluded, sufficiently so to not alarm or disrupt the others, irrespective of event or outcome, to provoke unwarranted attention of which I desire none. There should be none. Its flooring, theatrical and oblique, would claim or support a two-tined, sage-infested fork split by a broad-brushed paradise. And its central beam, unencumbered and amenable, could be accessed without much effort, although that would need to be plotted in advance. Accidental flight is not my ambition. Etched with unnaturally mechanical precision into the belly of a wall was the phrase, among the cowardly, the barbaric, the hateful, and the maladjusted, the context that most comfortably and supportively standardizes and normalizes their dogma, their injustices, their discriminations, and their insufferabilities will be the one they stray toward, the one they cling to, the one they invest in, and the one they call home. We are not, we do not, we build not. Whatever human utility had presumably all but defined its occupation of this space by electing that this text, principled and galvanizing, should become a physical feature, seems eerily primed to acclaim a sufficiently kindred status. The pastel view through the paneless windows was letting me know that the day was turning and the gruff weather had finally moved on. And while I am grateful for the sense, itchy and primal, of having spent these protected hours in worthwhile dialogue with this place, I am also approaching zero and need to make my way back to the nest to recharge, to reassemble the pieces on the board of my expectations. Swiveling for one last look around before fully taking my exit, though, the plum sunrise, fleshy and suggestive, coating the back half of my now dry body, I was certain of one thing: I will return. What was needed was a slow wander, an overachieving amble, a ginger-infused jaunt, and the southeastern arterial path, snakish and historic, leading to the Cavernous Art International building, every carved letter miraculously intact on its most exterior facade, seemed appropriate. Along the path, off to the right and energetically kept watch over by a grove of towering, lanky cob cherry trees, was a famous artifact, chivalrous and well-preserved, the story of its original purpose shared with countless generations of rats. We are told that humans called it a tennis court, and they had fabricated the entirety of this particular tennis court using a substance called stainless steel. They had then carefully layered a watery smooth nanoskin of graphene-reinforced biopaint on top of that, making the court both self-illuminating and biocured. So while the court's floor, crackless and euphoric, luminesced like a somber azure stone, all other surfaces and textures, charmless and secure, were a mono-silver. And though I have always accepted that story to be partially factual at best, I have also always paused here to briefly bathe in the intellectual re-envisioning of this sport humans supposedly played as more a rosemary-charred contest of ideas. I think this is a good idea, followed by, yes, not bad, but I think this is a better idea, and the scholarly duel would last until one idea was proven to be better, or one idea was proven to fail. Top floor this time, I broadcast with an almost comically pungent, matter-of-fact arrogance. The building finally coming into full view. The top floor was, for extraordinarily well-established reasons, an area previously unexplored, with things therefore previously unstudied. Top floor, something unambiguously new today, I mumbled with an increasingly understated but stable vigor multiple times along the remainder of the way in. And not to naively ignore the wisdom brought from those extraordinarily well-established reasons that those spaces, cankered and hazardous, most closely resembled a lemony dungeon, but what I am deserves it. What I could be demands it. I should not be up here. I should not be up here. I slowly mouthed in an effort to not hear even the most nominal of echoes rebound in return. But without cramp or misdirection, I marshaled my wits with a determined medicinal agility. As the hours passed, the topography became increasingly less foreign, less taxing, and I saw things no rat had ever seen. And then they appeared, almost growing, bruised and chalky, from the lawless gristle of what remained. A series of fantastically detailed sculptures of two human bodies, ancient and enormous per sculpture. One coupling were frozen in a moment of gloriously obtrusive contradiction, pornographic and violent, part pull and part push, part fusing and part tearing. And the building's supportive structures beside and beneath them anatomically mirrored their compellingly choreographed indecision. They drooped and frayed, tilted and crunched, incapable of knowing whether to let the saffron pair go with gravitational grace, or to support them in their litigious sexuality. And so I sat there, vertical and emboldened, for as long as I could, frozen like the sculpture, ticketless, in a playhouse of life-claiming rubble and life-giving ideas, knowing I had now seen what I had come to see, licked what I had come to lick. In the now dewy soil of my inquisition, autumn-sown and moisturized, I recognized at the moment of my return back down to the opportunistic plants and the industrious insects, back down to the thoughtful rain and the common breeze, preferably undeterred by abrasion or lightlessness, had arrived. It was indeed time to show myself, expeditiously and safely, to the ground. This is not an opportunity to forfeit goals, not an opportunity to lazily fall in love with whatever this place wants to auction. Its physical wisdom, perfumed and suspicious, dangles in ease not meant as lodging or nursery. Unexplored and unstudied, unceremoniously ceased being as wholesome and optimistic as brain alive and breathing. And no sooner had the tip of my tail crossed the border into the fluorescent sword ferns and chamomile hostas than the air, puffed and rumbling, without clean cause or dawn, made space for whatever was punching and pulverizing its way through every horizontal surface beneath it, broadcasting a symphony, disquieting and nauseous as it did. When the amber cliffs of airborne particles had resolved out of sight, I realized that what it was, twisted and satisfied, was the frozen moment sculpture. The unintended humor of its construction, precise and fearless, now an impressively self-realized punchline. Some things sincerely are as indestructible as they are unsustainable. During the return trek, I stopped, not due to exhaustion or disorientation, but for lack of clear purpose. If I had it, it was no longer soundly underfoot. So I sat in the radiation-protected belt of magnetic grapeweed, and I remained there, needless and poised, blinking and listening mostly, for no less than an hour. To my right, not especially close, but still well in focus under the marbled footprint of an elderly black locust tree, was an antique hydrogen automobile, owlish and untroubled, respectable in its resolve to stay upright. The family of pink fiddle-fur rabbits on its roof were either sleeping or willingly drowning in the tang, sugary and weightless, leaking from the many dangling constellations of ivory flower clusters. Inches to my left, however, was a fragment of a puddle, lifeless and unremarkable, deep enough to steal the abilities of only much tinier organisms. But as I began to stare into it, into the fig tree of my own reflection, an unexpectedly courteous rage gagged my thoughts. I then, loaded and swelling, growled aloud to the mushrooming repercussions of the moment without consideration or blush. I am going to kill you, and there is nothing you can do about it. I am going to kill you, and what, if anything, remains, emerges, and continues to live, will be stronger than you. My apologies in advance. I reloaded my gaze, snap detecting the most inconsequential of scratching sounds. One of the huskier rabbits, crouched and studious, had awoken and was facing me directly. The truth is, sometimes there is the need to put a thing out of its own misery, and sometimes there is the need to put a thing out of everything else's misery. And that includes ideas. When it was shockingly, but systematically proven that it was orders of magnitude less unlikely that a chimpanzee placed alone in a room with a piano would compose a riveting concerto, then those same proteins coming together to have formed that exact chimpanzee in the first place, well, things rapidly got fidgety among the superstitious. They had simply never chosen a properly tuned piano. There is a memory. I was reminded during a recent community information exchange that it all started to go indescribably wrong for humans when there was no accessible stillness, no arcane privacy, and no lagoon den, scenic and appointed for either to rest for the night. And it culminated, gaping and shriveled, with the war between the disposabilists, who permitted and ultimately encouraged and participated in calculated overconsumption and neo-algorithmic provisionalist economics, and the reductionists, who strived to generate a maxi-beneficially peaceful and productive socio-economic balance, famous for their promotion of the phrase, disposable goods lead to disposable economics. We are not like the humans. Their dates with expiration are not ours, but it is nonetheless fruitful to know where certain boundaries, rage-washed and feral, have been laid in the desert of civility. In the wet straw wake of those early morning intentions, poetry, it itself, must have spring-loaded into me from a wormhole in the mold of a galaxy, pubescent and lush, seated in the cracks of the biocrete warehouse walls. The notion that we as individuals belong anywhere, at any time and for any reason, is a socioculturally toxic one at best and a life-threatening one at worst. It is similar to the notion, not to mention an instinctively detectable and impartially measurable one, that an individual rock harbors the genetic programming resulting in its desire to hunt an individual fish. Maybe it does. Maybe they all do. But the sadness of their discipline, collective and magnanimous, is also noble enough to know how that compulsion would end. Nonetheless, they ponder it, obsess over it, forever. Their journey, beautiful and foolish, is directed toward a mirage of flashes, originating from an unoccupied lighthouse on the shattered crags of a shore they will never see, never reach. They are at least owed one poem, I thought. And so, for the first time, I composed one. This is that poem. We should addicted be aimed at the broad-banked horizon of darkness, jaws stretched, glistening daggers fixed to gnaw, tense tornado eyes and ears consuming arc relentless, until the fictions whimper limp and the rancid grudges thaw. I had a dream last night. I was confronted by a circular space, enclosed by a barrier of numberless open doors. Thinking about and then proceeding through one caused the other doors to slam shut, leading to another circular space, enclosed by another barrier of numberless open doors. Thinking about and then proceeding through one caused the other doors to again slam shut, leading to another circular space, closed by still another barrier of numberless open doors, and to another, and to another, and to another, and on, and on, and on. This is reality, I simultaneously realized and said aloud, still gripped by the prosody, undulating and exact of the dream's message. This is the truth, the sharpest vista, compassionate map merciful quantum truth. We are not destined to be endlessly confronted by closed doors, existentially coerced to select one, open it, and proceed through. The doors are all perpetually open to us. I do not recall waking, knowing that specific transition was occurring, but the implications of being consciously so, especially in opposition to the obverse idea of being in a conscious state of not dreaming, verged on laughably problematic. It is all potential. The doors are all perpetually open to us. I found myself burning to move, to walk more quickly, then running slowly, then running more and more and more ecstatically until my gait, savage and effortless, zip-hummed, until everything around me was so unnatural, so unfocused, so unrecognizable, so indistinguishable, that it rocket-roused me into appreciating that I had somehow tripped, nose long and oxygenless, into the bristles of an epiphany. And this epiphany was unlike any previously entertained idea. It was bolder, fantastically bolder, exponentially bolder, like a river lion born and raised in a laboratory, horizonless and cuboidal, seeing the sun in the flat, ultra-blue sky and smelling the dwarf magnolias part under the protection of the mountain, and listening to the myriad languages of the other animals reverberating off the clouds and the petals and the cliffs for the very first time. The gross weight futility of surrendering to the infinite familiar rituals of a persistent perspective, of managing the accuracy and the success of those infinite familiar rituals, deleted, sponged whole into a raving quiet of an unshackled nothing, void of even voids themselves. The programming can no longer mend a taller fence as briskly as I am able to leap cautionless over it. Eventually returning to a walk and stopping altogether within a few strides, the consequence of the epiphany, phosphorescent and stout, volunteered itself. No thought or action remained to be uncurtained or unraveled. The decision had been made. While subsequent visits, tactical and novel, had scarcely made it any less colossal in size or impression, the warehouse seemed to furnish its plot much more distinctively, much more vivaciously, in the now fuzzy, citrus-rind glow of a poppy late spring afternoon. It stood, and it exhaled, and it persevered, like a high-glade giant redwood might stand, and exhale, and persevere in the moments leading up to, for example, a presumably dire prognosis. It, majestic and unburdened, cared unconditionally while also managing to not care at all. And its tectonic floor had ambitiously self-prepared with an unidentifiable but generous amount of a spongy, aqua-tinted ground cover crop where only veins of muddy grit and lusterless crushed rocks once were. Its microscale, elliptical leaves even vented a buttery moonberry aroma, deep and flamboyant. Its cells evidently manufacturing just enough glucose from just enough sunlight floating in through just enough of the splattering of splits and holes in the walls and ceiling. It was doing its best to do its best, part comedy and part funeral, and I could not help but respond with a grin, untethered and grateful, up and into its regal punk airs. Body or ghost, it was as equipped for my presence as I was to be present. When the ascent to the chosen position on the chosen beam was nearly complete, up the many layers and levels and through the cross-shanked passages and under the series of dank openings and around the family of molting apricot spider doves, huddled and wise, I was a swirl in a hyperlocal Coriolis of awareness and unawareness currents, settling fresh into a vacuum state, numb and transcendent, a stupor shell of constructive dis-awareness. But as opposed to the unstoppable flow of the deadness procession all systems, coded and inanimate, seem to unidirectionally abide entrapped by, we seem to be ruled by a prodigiously different contractual algorithm. Because we can, and because we have to, those are the only two reasons we do anything. Because we can, and because we have to. And today, right now, it just might be both. But I am also not too proud to admit that I was perched high enough to not be able to establish if there is a parade or a vigil preparing to bloom, but not high enough to gleefully slalom those options as if my aim alone could possess and guide this particular multi-winged horse. Everything felt different this time. All the shapes and all the colors, all the combinations and all their iterations, all the creatures past and present and all the organisms they fed upon, all the ideas decent and delirious, all the entangled interactions in all the contexts in all the timelines, all the languages with their syntax and all the learning with its generations of memorials. They were all with me, and we were all crashing, but also gifted to this moment, to its wonder, abrasive and prismatic as it folded into the confident exhale that precedes the ignorant inhale, that precedes the brutal exhale. I am going to kill you now, I thought, having decided to think it, all perception of scale, wallowing in bone seared, shook loose as I did. And I leapt. Immediately, almost instinctively, it was evident that no esteemed argument, or need for an esteemed argument, exists that decrees the best use of this time be to ponder back, to ogle recklessly over a rugged shoulder, to gorge on the steamed bread, warm and intoxicating of nostalgia. Friction peaks at the front of the beak, but the view is priceless and the honor eternal. Friction peaks at the front of the beak, but the view is priceless and the honor eternal. Friction peaks at the front of the beak, but the view is priceless and the honor eternal, my increasingly spastic voice proclaimed. And I soared. during those years, midair, surprisingly not preoccupied with the prospect of the immediate modification from an is to a was, I discovered, unceremoniously, as is most frequently the way, among other things oriented within this wobbly but brazen orbit, a means, laurel-crowned and breathtaking, to heal. And I landed. What I am is a rat, and what I am is what I could be.